Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. My name is Ned Holmes and this is The Debate Show. This morning I'm joined by Toby and Billy Mulley, my colleagues from Football League World, to debate which three players could decide the League One playoff race. Toby, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, good, thanks. So it really is getting to that stage of the season now, isn't it, where these sort of top six places are going to be decided. So it's going to be really good, really interesting, I think, to run the reel over some of the key players in that sort of top six battle that we've got coming up.
Absolutely. And what about you, Billy?
Yeah, same as Toby. Really excited to go through this because you think of the top four places at the third to sixth at the moment. None of them are really secure. So all the chasing pack, there's a lot to play for in what remains of this League One season.
Absolutely, as you say, still a long way to go, and the gap between Sunderland in sixth and Bolton in 11th is just 8 points as it stands, which sort of illustrates how many teams are really pushing to claim one of those top four places. I mean, the four places in the top six rather to secure their way into the playoffs. Before we get started, just a reminder, as always, please do give this video a like, subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you haven't already, and do let us know in the comments which players you think are going to have a sort of decisive role in the playoff race as the League One season moves towards the business end. I mean, I think ahead of the season, it's no secret. Everyone, sort of, every EFL fan and sort of journalist or commentator or whoever sort of picked out League One this season as probably the most competitive division and one that was really going to be exciting, and so it's proving. And I asked you two guys to sort of submit your three players that you felt could have a decisive factor in the League One playoff race in the final few weeks of the season. Two of those that you submitted to me were the same, and then there's one that differs. So we're going to go through four players, starting with Sunderland striker Ross Stewart. 22 goals this season with Sunderland, as I said before, up in sixth with 59 points. Toby, why does Ross Stewart make your list?
As you say, it's them goals really. I mean, I think even going back towards the start of the season, there was a huge deal of pressure on Ross Stewart in particular to really step up for Sunderland following the departure of Charlie Wyke, who had a similarly prolific season for them last time around, and then obviously moved on to Wigan. So that sort of really left the goal scoring void that badly needed to be filled at Sunderland if they were going to stay competitive again. And obviously, as you say, 22 league goals this season on its own, that shows how well Stewart has done in terms of stepping in and filling that void that has been left by the departure of Charlie Wyke. But I think what is also significant about that is that if you look at sort of the Sunderland scoring charts more in depth, you see that not only is it a huge tally from Stewart, but it's also 17 goals more than any other Sunderland player has scored in the league this season. So that too just shows you how important he in particular is to this sort of Sunderland side and to them meeting the expectations that they once again had coming into this season of, pushing, probably many would have said, beyond the playoffs and towards automatic promotion when you sort of look at the size of the club and the financial backing that they've got. So yeah, the fact that it is really him that stepped into that void, and it's his goals that are really coming to the fore to Sunderland again. He got a couple in a huge win over at Wigan at the weekend that really sort of kick-started the Alex Neil reign, the first win under him. And, yes, there were penalties, but, I was thinking penalties, it's not a simple goal to score when you're one-on-one with a keeper and you've got that weight of expectation on you to score. So that too sort of shows the pressure that he can handle. And yeah, that to me just really reinforces the fact that, if Sunderland are to have a chance of making the top six and getting up this season, then it feels like they have to keep that supply coming to Stewart, because he more than anyone seems to be the one that can get the goals that are going to get them the wins that put them into that promotion picture.
Absolutely. Barely coming to you on Ross Stewart just quickly. I mean, obviously Alex Neil has come in and be it that he's trying to rest players or whatever, he still seems to be feeling out perhaps what his best squad is, or side is rather. But one player that really, I guess provides some stability when there's been so much sort of change around him in the starting 11, it is Ross Stewart. first of all, how important is that? And second of all, how important is that we don't just dismiss him as, a big striker. I think they call him the Loch Ness Drogba. We don't just describe him as a huge, target man. He does make really clever runs and he can score all sort of goals, can't he?
Exactly that. The abilities he does have is not confined to his goal scoring abilities. He's a willing runner. He gets in behind. I think we've seen that against Wickham. He is a big target man, links the play very well, but he's also relentless when pressing as well, something that I think is becoming even more vital under Alex Neil, winning the ball back from the front and, playing counter-attacking football and creating chances that way. And as you say, he's been someone that's a stable part of the starting 11 this season. I think it's a credit to the ability he has and the importance he has in that team. I think as Toby says as well, 22 goals at this stage of the season. It's only right that he should be labelled a decisive figure in what remains of this season. The goals he has scored are varied as well, which is all, it makes preventing the goals quite difficult for opposition. So yeah, everything with Ross Stewart points towards a top quality striker at this level, and should he continue getting the service, he will continue to score goals. I think he did go on a 6-game goalless run recently, but that sort of coincided with creative issues for Sunderland on a whole. I don't think it was solely down to his lack of finding the net. I think it was more down to the chances he was presented with. But with Sunderland getting that all-important win against Wigan, I think, that's the confidence builder that Alex Neil needs. That's the confidence builder that, the more attacking players need, and start feeding. If you start feeding him a fair bit more, he's going to score goals. He's that kind of player.
Absolutely. We'll move on to our next sort of decisive League One player next, and it's a fellow Scotsman. Barry Bannan is the next player that both you two picked, the Sheffield Wednesday captain. I think, when Wednesday were relegated last season, there was a lot of talk of sort of perhaps Bannan being too good for this level, and perhaps Owls fans will have been hoping to see more consistently him sort of pulling the strings, but 7 goals and 8 assists now. Billy, Wednesday making a sort of playoff charge. Why have you gone for the Owl skipper?
Trying to avoid recency bias because he was unbelievable yesterday. He played a real big part, 2 goals and an assist. The strikes that he scored from were brilliant as well. So, trying to avoid some recency bias, but he's that kind of player. We thought it at the start of the season, as you alluded to there, that it was a bit of a cheat code for this division. Whilst he has been good, he hasn't really hit those heights, but it appears that he's sort of stepping on that untouchable form now. You said 7 goals and 8 assists in his 33 games this season, but if you take into account the last 10 games, then it's 5 goals and 4 assists, which just shows that he seems to be stepping it up a gear at the moment. And that's coincided with Sheffield Wednesday's push for promotion at the moment, because they've gone into the playoffs, and you could even consider them automatic promotion contenders at this stage of the season. So having a player as influential as Bannan is going to be massive in what remains. And they've been dealt some serious injury blows, and it's continuing this season. But Bannan's been that sort of source of consistency, a player that is going to be in there. And whilst he hasn't been as influential maybe at the start of the season, he was still, putting in solid enough performances, and now he's entering that unplayable sort of step in his career again, where he that particular game against Burton yesterday, he just looked untouchable. Nobody could get near him, and the goals sort of followed that trend as well.
Absolutely. Toby Bannan, obviously, probably started to play a little bit deeper in the last few years than we've seen him early on in his career, but to allow him to sort of pull the strings. But in recent weeks, we've really seen his impact in the final third. I mean, 4 goals, 4 assists since the start of February. He's hitting form at just the right time for the Owls, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks to be, and as Billy was sort of touching on it, it's no coincidence that sort of moment where Bannan has really clicked into top gear has coincided sort of with this run that Sheffield Wednesday have gone on. That has put them right back into playoff contention, when there was a point not that long ago where you were sort of looking at them and questioning whether they could sort of pick up the results that they needed to really get into this top 6 picture. And now, as Billy says, they are maybe even dark horses for the top 2, and a lot of that is down to that influence that Bannan has, especially when you sort of consider the fact that if you look at this side, they are not a team who has someone like a Ross Stewart who's been banging in the goals on a very consistent basis this season. You know, they've had to sort of rely on contributions from all over the pitch, and it's no surprise that Bannan is sort of delivering that recently now. And as we've said plenty of times, he is probably, when he's on form, he's way too good for this level. The question has always been, can he do that regularly enough to really sort of propel Wednesday out of this division? And it looks as though we may now be timing hitting that form just perfectly. And I think the other thing as well is he's not just scoring goals, he's creating them as well. So those are two. You know, the fact that he can do both is really significant in a side that, as I say, does not really have a prolific goal scorer. As well, I think one thing that's going to be really interesting now with that sort of creativity that Bannan is producing is how much can other players play off that. You know, we're starting to see Callum Patterson coming into a bit of form as well. Lee Gregory, who is the Owls' top scorer this season, he's very close, it sounds like, to returning from injury. So there are players there who now could potentially thrive off sort of the supply that Bannan is capable of producing them. And so if he does do that now, between now and the end of the season, then you'd feel that really the goals ought to be flowing as they did last night, to an extent that the Owls really can push on to, at the very least, claim a top 6 place, if not potentially more.
Absolutely, certainly plenty of positives for Wednesday fans at the moment, and for EFL neutrals, it's just good to see sort of a magician like Barry Bannan back at his best. Well, our next pick then, Toby, is your third and final pick. You've gone for Scott Twine. He's got a quite ridiculous 14 goals, 9 assists this season to help MK Dons up to third place with 66 points. But why do you feel he's a player that can decide the League One playoff race?
Well, that record sort of backs it up for me. I mean, I think you look back to the summer and sort of the players that MK Dons had lost, and also the manager in Russell Martin. And so with some of those departures, I sort of questioned, you know, whether they'd be able to produce anything close to this season. But Twine was one of them who they did bring in, and as you say, he's really stepped up to the mark for the Dons since then. I mean, you know, 14 goals, that's 5 more than any other MK Dons player, 9 assists, 4 more than any other MK Dons player in the league. So, you know, he's really been such a vital sort of individual in what has become a really impressive season for them now in terms of potentially not just pushing for the playoffs again. They're another side who look like they could be in that automatic promotion picture, especially when you consider, you know, they've got league leaders Rotherham up at the weekend, and then the weekend after that, after a clash with Cheltenham, they've got Wigan who are in second. So, you know, there's a huge opportunity there for MK Dons to really push on. And if they can get 2 wins from those 2 games in particular, then you've got to consider them top 6 contenders as well. And I think, as I say, the fact that it's really Twine who's leading from the front, both in terms of taking those chances and creating them for teammates as well, it looks like he's one who's going to be absolutely vital to that. And you sort of consider the fact that, you know, there were sort of whispers of championship clubs being interested in him last summer. He's sort of really backing that up now with what he's ultimately doing in League One for MK Dons. And you feel that given that interest there was in him, and the fact that he's now backing it up with what he's doing week in, with that week out in the third tier, that will emerge again in the summer. It would be no surprise to see. And in that sense as well, you feel almost that he really, from an MK Dons perspective, they need him to step up and potentially get them to the championship to give them the best possible chance of holding on to him for next season.
Absolutely. Billy, Toby talks about sort of the added importance, well, the importance that he's really taken on, you know, players departing in the summer, Russell Martin departing, Liam Manning coming in, and then even in January, Matt O'Reilly's departure piles yet more pressure on Scott Twine. But it really just seems to help him thrive, doesn't it?
Yeah, every time I've seen MK Dons play this season, Scott Twine, I love him. I love to watch him as a footballer. He's everything that, you know, a creative midfielder aspires to be. He's just really got it all. And I think my club Luton were after him in the summer, and he was a player I really, really wanted to get. But going to MK Dons is probably, and the form that he's shown at MK Dons is probably made his price increase by, you know, tenfold at the moment, because he's just that good. And in, you know, 23 goal contributions in the league, he's good for any player, but for an attacking midfielder who, you know, has had to deal with losing some key players around him. It's really, really impressive form. And as we say, Matt O'Reilly's he's departed and doing very well at the moment at Celtic. And you just think, for me, Scott Twine was that little bit better. The kind of influence he has on games, and, you know, when he gets the ball, things happen. And that's really backed up with the 23 goal contributions this season.
Absolutely. It certainly does seem as though Scott Twine will be playing in a higher division next season, whether or not that's with MK Dons, and he can help them go up either via automatic promotion or the playoffs. We come to our final pick on today's debate show. James Johnson in the comments has said, long shot now for Ipswich, but do you think they're still in the playoff place, or is it way too late for them? Well, James, I think Billy's got some good news for you. He thinks Wes Burns could be a decisive player in the League One playoff race. 9 goals, 4 assists for Burns, who obviously was one of many players to join in the summer, making the switch from Fleetwood Town. Ipswich are 9th with 53 points. That's 6 points back from Sunderland in 6th. But Billy, why does Wes Burns make your list?
I think it's the consistency factor. He's consistently been at the top of his game all season. I think one word to describe Ipswich's start to the season was inconsistent, but the fact that, you know, Wes Burns has been putting in these kind of performances all season has just been a big credit to him, and a big, you know, pull as to why I've decided to go for him in this list. Just looking at sort of the goal contributions again, 9 goals and 5 assists in 27 League One games has been a real boost for Ipswich in what I say has been, you know, an up and down season. I think under Kieran McKenna now, everything looks a lot better. The football they're playing, the way they press, territorially speaking as well, it all is pointing towards an improvement. And I wouldn't call it a long shot. I think Ipswich is still well within the running, and, you know, it's down to these players like Wes Burns who have that evident threat to continue in the way that they're doing. And as I said before, is the fact that he has been so consistent already this season makes me think that he's going to be increasingly pivotal in these concluding stages of the season. He's a player that, like Scott Twine, if Ipswich do not go up this year, then there will be championship interest, and, you know, his price would have gone up. But yeah, he's, for me, he's just critical to the way that Ipswich play, devastating on the counter attack. He's so relentless, got so much pace, but also those 14 goal contributions suggest that he's also a trusted player in the final third and makes meaningful contributions in the final third. So yeah, it's as I say, a very, very good player, a very important player, I think, in what remains. And it's that consistency factor for me, which draws me to selecting him in this list.
Absolutely. You use the word or the phrase rather, meaningful contributions there. And I think that's a really interesting point, Toby. Obviously, last summer, perhaps it'd be unfair to call the Ipswich's transfer approach last summer's sort of scattergun, but I think it was 16 or 19 perhaps new players arriving at Portman Road as sort of Mark Ashton flexed Ipswich's new financial might. You know, a fair few of them have been hit and miss, and would we say that Wes Burns is the best signing made in that sort of summer window?
Yeah, he's definitely up there, isn't he? As you say, when they sort of make so many, it's perhaps hard to pick out a certain individual, but there's no question he's up there. And I think as well, what you've got to consider is you look at some of the signings that Ipswich were making. There was a lot of players coming in from Championship clubs. You know, Sam Morsey from Middlesbrough, Macaulay Bonne, who is, in fairness, another one you would argue is one of their top signings from that summer, but coming in from QPR, Connor Chaplin from Barnsley, even say to some extent Raheem Harper from West Brom, who's, you know, one who perhaps hasn't worked out. He's now on loan at Crewe. But what that sort of means is, you know, there were a lot more signings that you felt were potentially more high profile, and given they were dropping down from the Championship to League One, who you felt could have had a bigger impact than, say, a Wes Burns, who, you know, as we mentioned, was playing for Fleetwood in League One last season and finished in the bottom half of that division. So, you know, it really sort of shows, you know, how well he's stepped up to now be one of these standout players for Ipswich this season. And I think that's credit to the way he's approached the situation and applied himself. And despite the fact that, as I say, there might arguably be more high-profile names that came in, he's almost become one who is very hard to drop now for Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. And I mean, as you say, meaningful contributions is a pretty accurate way of putting it. You know, his goal at the weekend, that salvaged a point against Morecambe that keeps the 6-game unbeaten run going for Ipswich. And you just wonder how important having that extra bit of momentum could be for them going forward. And that is down to him, and that sort of goal that he provided there, that's still the case. So yeah, absolutely. And it means they're still within 6 points of those top 6 places, which I think when they've got 11 games still to play, it's going to be a challenge. I don't think there can be any doubt in that, but it's a far from impossible one. And yeah, it does absolutely look, as we're saying, that Wes Burns will be a key part of any chance Ipswich have of overhauling that deficit.
Absolutely. It would certainly be a shock if Ipswich were to make the playoffs and Wes Burns wasn't to play a key part. Well, that is everything from us on the debate show today. But at 4 p.m, Ben Wignall will be your host for the West Brom fan debate as Matt from West Bromwich Albion Report discusses Steve Bruce's difficult start to life at the Hawthorns and what the hopes are now for the Baggies this season. Well, that just leaves me to say thank you to Toby and Billy, and thanks everyone for watching.